Starting to think that by Wi-Fi they meant LoRa.
Hello and welcome to the Holon Network podcast for April 6th of 2023. This week I have joining me,
Hey, I'm Digital Tinker.
and I'm Gatorbite. Yo, Digital, how's it going today, my friend?
Going pretty well.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
glad to
Yeah, had a
hear.
decent day at work, although it did get a bit rainy and humid after. Still decent day overall.
Beautiful. My wife and kids have been off for spring break when I'm still working and covering for other people, so they get to do all sorts of fun projects, and I'm like, just itching to get something done. And then with the other news this week of like the new Prusa printer, it's like, ooh, that Mark IV shiny, and look how fast it prints things. That looks pretty neat. So, lots of fun things between that. Then you've got like the Sony camera that came out. That's the better vlogging type one. That's in between the A7S and the A6000 series, and the framework 16 and 13
Mm-hmm.
with the AMD. There's all sorts of stuff going on between last week and this week. It's been interesting in the news.
Mm-hmm. I didn't quite catch all that because I was out camping over the weekend, so had a good time there. Worked on cleaning the camp up, getting it ready for some summertime fun.
Nice, fantastic. Yeah, like you said, things cooled down and then warmed up, and we're getting this very same over here on the West Coast where we've got so much rain over here. It's been incredible. We have been cleaning the yard because all this green stuff keeps on popping up from the ground, which is not normal. We usually have a brown layer. Looking across the valley, though, um, we've got green, we've got purple, and we have yellow. In another week or two here, we're going to have the California poppy flowers pop up. So the purple are all of the goat head weeds that have purple flowers that are super small.
Mm-hmm.
Then you have your dandelions that are yellow in our area. So it'll be a fun allergy season for sure. But other than that, I can tell you what, the weather has, in between the blowing and knocking over and pushing the playset to raining, we've had some really nice days too. So, like getting a hammock and just chilling outside, I'm okay with it. It's been good. So, just in the transition of going from cold weather to hot weather, and next week we're going to be up in the 90s. So, woo! Bring on the air conditioners and swamp coolers, right?
Yep.
Well, we ready to kick into the news then?
I think so.
Let's do it to it. All right. As always, let's start off with our current Bitcoin price. Ooh, look at that. We're at $28,103.47 as of time of recording. Gold per ounce is $2,021.40. Oil per barrel is $80.50. And the Dogecoin is currently at 0.08598.
I actually heard an ad talking about the cryptocurrency ATMs,
Oh, yeah?
and they specifically mentioned Dogecoin. It's like, really?
I mean, if you're on Twitter this week, too, as of like April 1st, nothing happened on Twitter, quote unquote, on April 1st. Second, third came out, all of a sudden, a bunch of the icons for Twitter are now all the Doge dog. It's like, was this? I always heard about how quickly Twitter would go through and push implementation, or how Netflix was like hourly pushing out. Did it take 3 days to do an April's Fool joke, or is this just not going as well as some people thought? And I
I
mean,
mean, I
as of
already thought it
this,
was going pretty bad.
right? As of the 6th, it's still the Dogecoin or the Doge dog on Twitter, right?
Hmm.
So, anyways, it's a bit weird. All right, let's get into our news for our vulnerabilities for this week. So, the Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Security Agency vulnerability for summary of the week of March 27th is the latest. that we've got available to us. And jumping in, let's see what we've got that pulls attention. Looks like the first one that I see is a Google Android one with the Pull It package before 1.4.0 for Node.js allows OS command injections because of eval is used on an attacker-supplied Git branch name. CVSS score of a 9.8 CVE of 2018 to 5083. Nope, I read that one completely wrong. That was for the Pull It package. Wow. So we're just gonna move down to the next one there. Looks like there's 3 different Google Android ones, all at 9.8 CVEs of 2022, 20532, 28495, and 42498, having to do with the first one, the parse track fragment run of an MPEG-4 extractor.cpp. There's a possible out-of-bounds read due to an integer overflow that could lead to a remote escalation of privilege with no additional execution privilege needed. Let's see. The next one was the Pixel cellular firmware. There's a possible out-of-bounds write due to the missing bounds check. This could lead to remote code execution with no additional execution privilege needed. And finally, an SMS send MMCP error message of SMS MMCON management.c. There's a possible out-of-bounds write due to a heap buffer overflow. That again could lead to remote code execution with no additional execution privilege needed. All these are rated at 9.8.
So those hacking tools occasionally need updates as well. Right now it's Cobalt Strike 4.7.1 fails to properly escape HTML tags when they are displayed on Swing components. By injecting crafted HTML code, it's possible to remotely execute code in Cobalt Strike UI. It's a vulnerability or a score of 9.8 and CVE 2022 42948.
I realized I should have probably switched my headset, so I apologize. Give me a second here. Okay. From that, scrolling down a little bit more. Ooh, if you're running edge routers, i.e. Ubiquiti, there are a couple for the UI Edge Router X firmware. The 3 that I see, 2 of the 3 are disputed. So let's go with the one that's got the vulnerability currently listed, which is a vulnerability which was classified as critical has been found in the Ubiquiti Edge Router X 2.0.9-hotfix 6. This issue affects some unknown processing of the component of NAT configuration handler. The manipulation leads to a command injection, and the attack may be initiated remotely. The exploit has been disclosed to the public and may be used. The real existence of this vulnerability is still doubted at the moment. The identifier is VDB223301 was assigned to this vulnerability. Note that the vendor position is that the post-authentication issues are not accepted as vulnerabilities. There are 2 other CVEs also connected to this. So the first one that we just read off was CVE 2023 1456. The second one is 2023 1457. And lastly, CVE 2023 1458.
There are 4 more Android 9.8 scores, as well as 2 for TensorFlow that are both 9.8. That include, talking about TensorFlow as an open source platform for machine learning. Attackers using TensorFlow prior to 2.12.0 or 2.11.1 can access heap memory, which is not in the control of the user, leading to a crash or remote code execution. The fix will be included in TensorFlow version 2.12.0 and will also cherry pick the commit on TensorFlow version 2.11.1. That one's at 9.8 and CV 2023 25668.
Okay. Scrolling right along. Looks like there's a couple more for Android. Let's see. What else is jumping out at you? Oh, there's a Nextcloud server. We've talked about running that in the past for self-hosting. Nextcloud server is an open source personal cloud implementation in various versions from 2.4.0.0 and before 2.4.0.9. A user could escalate their permissions to delete files they are not supposed to be deletable, but only viewed or downloaded. This issue has been addressed, and it has been recommended that the Nextcloud server is upgraded to 24.0.9. There are no known workarounds for this vulnerability. CVSS score of an 8.1, CVE of 2023 25817.
Looks like OpenOffice is having some trouble with macros, which kind of surprising after hearing it so much with Windows. Those are both 7.8s. CVE 2022 38745 and 47502.
Then to follow up with that, there's a Linux kernel issue. A buffer overflow vulnerability was found in the net filter subsystem of the Linux kernel. The issue could allow the leakage of both stack and heap addresses and potentially allow local privilege escalation to the root user via an arbitrary code execution. CVSS score of a 7.8, CVE of 2023 0179.
As well as the X server. Vulnerability was found where the issue occurs due to a dangling pointer in deep copy pointer classes that can be exploited by various functions to read and write into freed memory. This can lead to local privilege elevation on systems where the X server runs privileged and remote code execution for SSH X forwarding session. It's a 7.8 and CVE 2023 0494.
And even more Google Androids. If you've got an Android device, it's time to go update.
And TensorFlow.
Right? I'm still scrolling on Android. There we go. Cool. Looks like there's a couple from Adobe on a handful of their softwares, including Dimension, Photoshop. Then we got malware. Oop, go ahead.
As I was about to say, I didn't know Malwarebytes bought ADW Cleaner.
Right? Take it away.
Malwarebytes ADW Cleaner 8.4.0 runs as administrator and performs an insecure file delete operation on cadw cleaner /logs/adw cleaner _debug.log, in which the target location is user controllable, allowing a non-admin user to escalate privileges to system via symbolic link. Surprised that's only a 7.8, but that one is a CVE 2023 28892.
It's been a long time since I've played with Malwarebytes, man. Even more Google Android. Oh, all right. We were talking about different networking gear, and we've talked about Microtech in the past. The Router OS had an issue in Bridge 2 components of the Microtech Router OS version 6.40.5 allows an attacker to cause a denial of service via a crafted packet. CVSS score of a 7.5, CVE of 2023 24094. And a lot more TensorFlow.
Mm-hmm.
Now, there's a little application that gets installed on a lot of different portable devices, whether it's a hard drive or a thumb drive. And Western Digital and SanDisk are both now owned, I believe, by the same company, which is the interesting part, versus them being separate in the past. So there's an application called the Western Digital SanDisk Private Access, and there's an issue with their software. So versions prior to 6.4.9 support insecure TLS 1.0 and TLS 1.1 protocols, which are susceptible to man-in-the-middle attacks, thereby compromising confidentiality and integrity of data. CVSS score of a 7.4, CVE of 2023 22812. And that looks like it finally closes out our highs. We ready to move on to our next
Mm-hmm.
story?
Yep.
Cool deal. And this one's yours. Take it away.
This was a running gag in the past, but now it's a reality. Journalist hurt by exploding USB bomb drive. The Register got clever with, now that's a flash bang.
Wow. Well done.
Police in Ecuador are investigating attacks on media organizations across the country after a journalist was injured by an exploding USB flash drive. In a press conference on Monday, Xavier Chango Lorena, chief of criminal investigations for the National Police of Ecuador, said authorities had found envelopes containing presumed explosive devices at 4 media outlets, 2 in Guayaquil and 2 in Quito, and a parcel delivery company. Lynn Artieda, a journalist and presenter for the Equavisa TV program, was reportedly injured as a result of the USB drive that blew up when he inserted it into a computer. They said the device was presumed activated by electrical charge it received upon insertion. The drive, he said, may have contained RDX, a type of military explosive that is yet to be confirmed by laboratory analysis. They did not identify Artieda by name, but said the news presenter was in good health with minor injuries to his head and face. According to them, only half of the charge exploded, and the outcome could have been much more severe if the whole thing had detonated as planned. So, really make sure you're not picking up random drives in your parking lot.
No kidding. And the interesting thing is that they do call out further on with Hack 5 hosting the demonstration with the security researcher MG, talking about exploding USB drives. But, yeah. We will. Yeah, don't plug in. I remember listening to an old InfoSec show talking about don't plug shit in, or go patch your shit, or whatever else, and it's like, yeah, this is yikes, just yikes. Glad he's okay. All right, and you got the next story up as well.
Researchers claim they can bypass Wi-Fi encryption, at least briefly. So, some cybersecurity researchers in Belgium and the U.S. recently published a paper scheduled for presentation later this year at the Usenix 2023 conference. The 3 co-authors couldn't resist a punny title, dubbing their attack "Framing Frames," with a strapline that says bypassing Wi-Fi encryption by manipulating transmit queues. As security researchers are wont to do, the trio asks themselves, what happens when a Wi-Fi user disconnects temporarily from the network, either accidentally or on purpose, but might very well reappear online after a short outage? So this sounded familiar because Hack 5 did similar questions where they're like, hey, all these SSIDs just broadcast randomly, or clients ask for these SSIDs. What happens if we just tell them yes? And thus the pineapple was born. So in this case, whenever your device goes offline briefly, the access device points or the controllers will queue up the packets for the device. That way, when it reappears, like say it's moving between 2 different access points, it can then provide those packets and be helpful, and that way you don't lose connection where you might otherwise be able to. So the researchers found out that they can either reattach to the access point whenever your device does go to sleep, or send out packets to knock your device off and then connect their own devices to get those packets back unencrypted. So the AP doesn't recognize that they were originally going to be encrypted to be broadcast over the Wi-Fi, and instead sends them unencrypted due to some meddling by the researchers. So it's not a huge amount of data, but it could be enough if targeted well.
Interesting.
There's also another attack where they used a slightly different technique. This time they sent out spoofed packets to force the wireless network card to disconnect from the network, after which they quickly set up a new connection with a new session key. For this attack, of course, they needed to know the Wi-Fi network key, but in many coffee shops or shared workplaces, those keys are as good as public, typically written on Blackboard or shared on a welcome email. If they were able to kick you off the network at exactly the right moment, or the wrong moment from your perspective, for example, just after you'd sent requests that they were interested in, and they managed to complete the spoofed reconnection in time, they might be able to decrypt a few relay fragments queued up from before. So it's certainly not a everyone panic and shut off your Wi-Fi, but certain things to be concerned about if you're using public Wi-Fi, like you should probably do anyway.
Right.
Because in theory, a VPN would be able to prevent all of this because the encryption is not relying on the Wi-Fi standard. You're doing your own tunnel over it. So as soon as you're on VPN, they're not going to get anything anyway.
Depending on how your VPN's set up, right? As long
Yeah,
as it's
that's true.
if you make sure that it disconnects on internet disconnect versus if it tries to if it reestablishes the VPN connection before you continue surfing, but some places do that, some places don't do that, right?
Mm-hmm.
But excellent point.
So I do have a couple points for what you can do. If your access points run on Linux, use the 5.6 kernel or later, as it apparently sidesteps the first attack because queued data won't be released if it was encrypted on arrival but would be unencrypted when finally sent out. And then flush traffic queues on key changes. If a client disconnects and wants to reconnect with a new session key, refuse to re-encrypt queued data received under the old key, simply discard it instead. And then for hotspot users, minimize the amount of unencrypted traffic you send. Here we're talking about a second level encryption on top of your Wi-Fi session key, such as HTTPS for your web browsing and DNS over HTTPS or TLS for your DNS requests. So, same thing we always say. Security is all about layers.
Absolutely. Just like our stories. We're going to unwrap the next level and go into This Week in Privacy or Lack Thereof. And I tell you what, along with that, there's been just a little topic that's been going around, and we're going to be referencing the Electronic Frontier Foundation's article on this, written on April 4th, with the broad, vague Restrict Act is dangerous substitute for comprehensive data privacy legislation. This is a lengthy article, but the nice thing is it also has the call to action on going through and saying, here's how to contact your congressmen, women, individuals, and making sure that you're doing your civil duty to make sure don't go through and support this. So just to read a little bit into this, this is the first time that you're hearing about it, is the recently introduced Restrict Act of S686 is rightfully causing a lot of concern. The bill is being called the TikTok ban, but it's more complicated than that. As we wrote in the initial review of the bill, the Restrict Act would authorize the executive branch to block transactions and holdings of foreign adversaries that involve information and communication technology and create undue or unacceptable risk to national security and more. We explained our opposition to the Restrict Act and urged everyone who agrees to take action against it. But we've also been asked to address some of the concern raised by others. So that's what we try to do here in this post. At its core, Restrict would exempt certain information services from the federal statute known as the Berman Amendment, which protects the free flow of information in and out of the United States and supports the fundamental freedom of expression and human rights concerns. Restrict would give more power to the executive branch and remove many of the common sense restrictions that exist underneath the Foreign Intelligence Service Act, or FISA, and the aforementioned Berman Amendments. But S686 would also do a lot more. EFF opposes the bill and encourages you to reach out to your representatives and ask them not to pass it. Our reasons for opposition are primarily that this bill is being used as a cudgel to protect data from foreign adversaries, but under our current data privacy laws, there are many domestic adversaries engaged in manipulative and invasive data collection as well. Separately, handling relatively unchecked power over to the executive branch to make determinations about what sort of information technologies and technology services are allowed to enter the U.S. is dangerous. If Congress is concerned about the foreign powers collecting our data, it should focus on the comprehensive customer data privacy legislation that would have real impact and protect our data no matter what platform it's on: TikTok, Facebook, Twitter, or anyone else that profits from our private information. That's why EFF supports such consumer privacy legislation. Foreign adversaries won't be able to get our data from social media companies if the social media companies aren't allowed to collect, retain, and sell it in the first place. So they go through a whole bunch of different questions and answers in this longer article. Some of the questions that they go through and address is, would a strict act result in a ban on the personal use of TikTok? And they're saying that that's unclear. Could a person be punished under the law for using a VPN to access TikTok if the U.S. access is restricted? And their one word answer is potentially. They've got full articles explaining more of this underneath the article that we'll have in our show notes. Another question that they answer is the Restrict Act a surveillance bill that would allow the government to access your device? Not exactly, but it's far too broad in the power it gives to investigate potential user data. And then they have the take action for you to be able to click the button, find out who your senators are and how to contact them. And what I have seen most people saying at this point is by calling and leaving a voice message of, hey, I'm such and such constituent from such and such state, and here's the reasons why I would vote to go not in favor of this bill. It seems to have a better impact than just going email, because other folks that I've been seeing online are talking about how that just gets filtered out at this point now. So it takes a little bit more effort, but the nice thing is they've already got things worded and scripted to where you could go through and read through it and leave that message fairly easily. So take the few minutes, take the time and do it. And
So how long before they offer to have you record a 3-second clip of your voice and then feed it into the AI to read the script for you?
Digital, why you do this
And then the AI on the other side will listen to it and immediately put it into the recycling bin.
We're just gonna apply that Chat GPT, baby. This is fine. I'm sure they'll just enlist Cambridge Analytica just to come back, since they've already got so much data on us, and just continue to attach it to our profiles, right? Okay. Good.
I also threw a link into the show notes to the Hacker Hangouts discussing this very topic.
Whoop whoop. Thanks for the plug, buddy. I appreciate it. Yeah. If you haven't gone over to Silk's channel when it comes to the Hacker Hangouts, it
Welcome.
Always a fun Saturday morning to be able to hang out with other folks, get involved in talking with the community. So, yeah, I think this last weekend's was TikTok or Tick Stop, the battle for the U.S. digital soul.
And you did get into a decent section on the Restrict Act and exactly what it was going to do.
Absolutely. And in the chat, I believe we also went through and linked to the actual bill. And one of the cool things, okay, going slightly nerdy. If you've not gone through and read different bills before, it can be pretty dry. The website actually from congress.org gives you the ability to click the play button and it will read it back to you. And it works. It gets interesting with the sub layers when they're pulling out bullet points, because they go A, B, C. So they'll go 1, A, B, C, and then just keep on going. The robot is decent. It's a decent robot voice. But I'm listening to it, and my youngest, who's mostly nonverbal, starts hearing A, subject, blah, 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 A. And then he picks up on it and then starts running around the house and then saying A all over the place. And then B. So it's freaking hilarious, but go check it out, get involved, and listen to the bill if nothing else. All right, I think you got the next story. Take it away.
Tesla workers shared images from car cameras, including scenes of intimacy. Never give all your employees access to cameras. It's always a bad idea. From 2019 to at least mid 2022, Tesla employees used an internal messaging system to share sometimes highly invasive videos and images recorded by customers' car cameras, according to lengthy Reuters report, based on interviews with 9 former Tesla employees. Although Tesla says its in car cameras are designed from the ground up to protect your privacy, today's Reuters report described employees as having easy access to the camera's output and sharing that freely with other employees. Some of the recordings caught Tesla customers in embarrassing situations. One ex employee described a video of a man approaching a vehicle completely naked. Also shared crashes and road rage incidents. One crashed video in 2021 showed a Tesla driving at high speeds in a residential area, hitting a child riding a bike, according to another ex employee. The child flew in one direction, the bike in another. The video spread around a Tesla office in San Mateo, California via private one-on-one chats, like wildfire, the ex-employee said. Now, I wonder how close to the test run they did with the autopilot, where it took out the fake child. That would be an interesting juxtaposition.
No kidding.
There are pictures of dogs and funny road signs that employees made into memes and embellishing them with amusing captions or commentary before posting them in private group chats. Some posts could be seen by scores of employees. One former employee reported seeing scandalous stuff, including scenes of intimacy but not nudity, as well as certain pieces of laundry, certain sexual wellness items, and just private scenes of life where we really were privy to because the car was charging. Meanwhile, one former employee saw nothing wrong with sharing images, described a function that allowed data labelers to view the location of recordings on Google Maps as a massive invasion of privacy.
So I'm not getting a
As Reuters
Tesla. Crazy. Okay, go ahead.
What car doesn't have cameras now?
Old ones, digital, like before 1994.
As Reuters notes, Tesla's consumer privacy notice says that camera recordings remain anonymous and are not linked to you or your vehicle. But 7 ex-employees told Reuters the company program they used at work could show the location of recordings, which could potentially reveal where a Tesla owner lived. The article said, one former employee told Reuters, we could see inside people's garages and their private properties.
Just, are we surprised by this?
No.
Yeah, okay, all right.
I used to manage a video system, security system for a company. And at one point had one of the employees ask, oh, hey, something really funny happened. Can we get a recording of that? I'm like, go ask security first.
No kidding, right?
It's their data. I know they're going to say no, so have fun with that.
Right. But when you're buying a software as a service, which is what basically most of the modern cars are now, you've got that 4G or 5G hookup at this point that's got... Sure, you're feeding the algorithm and you're feeding AIs to be able to be better drivers and all this other stuff, but you're also giving them a lot more access to your private life.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah, because even if they're not using Wi-Fi or cellular to track you, they could just equip LoRa sensors and, oh, hey, Amazon, how would you like to track our cars for us?
Oh, digital. Look at you. Absolutely. So we'll bump one of the stories up a little bit because you just did a beautiful opening there, and it's too good to waste. Amazon just opened up its Sidewalk network for anyone to build connected gadgets on. This is from The Verge on March 31st. So it's a long-range, low-bandwidth network can give any IoT device free, low-speed data. Now, we had talked about this about 2 years ago or so, and I'll read part of the article. There's a lot to go on here. The Verge is probably the best article I've seen on this thus far, with a lot of extra links to other items. So we'll get into it. It turns out that I have a low-powered, low-bandwidth, long-range IoT network all around me, ready and waiting for my smart gadgets to jump on. Today, Amazon revealed just how far its Sidewalk IoT network penetrates the average American neighborhood. And it's deep. The company's first sidewalk coverage map claims over 90% of the US population can access the now public network, but it's limited to the US only. Using the sidewalk developer kit supplied by Amazon, the writer of this article drove around his town to confirm that this data, and over 3 days of traveling more than 40 miles, found that the connectivity was surprisingly strong in his corner of South Carolina and even in the wilds of the national forest. So there's articles and pictures with this. They have a map showing each of the dots is successful ping from a sidewalk network at 10-second intervals, and this data from this sidewalk test kit. The colors indicate strength. Blue overlay indicates blanket coverage, and it kind of ranges in between. There's a couple blue dots, there's greens, yellows, and oranges, and a couple red dots, but it's got some decent coverage. Amazon has released this data in conjunction with the official Amazon believes will help enable the next wave of connected devices. It's not designed to replace cellular data for high bandwidth devices, but instead to be used instead of expensive LTE or 5G connectivity on gadgets that don't need much data, and we're paying $10 or more a month for data in excess. Currently, Sidewalk mainly exists to help Ring cameras send motion notifications, even though they're offline, and allow smart locks to connect to the internet without the need for battery sapping Wi-Fi radios. Amazon has also developed a few early partnerships with CareBand, which developed a wearable health tracker. Now, Amazon wants to help others to build devices to use its free network. All you need to do is request the test kit, which is a small wireless device with Ring branding on it. Gauge if the connectivity in your area that you want to deploy your product is sufficient, and you can start building. Nordic, Silicon Labs, and other silicon companies have SDKs and HDKs available now. And the AWS IoT Core for Sidewalk provides a one-stop shop for connected devices. While only the AWS cloud services can directly receive the data transmitted via Amazon Sidewalk, LIMP says that developers aren't required to use AWS cloud services for their device data. So the nice thing about this article is that they go on a little bit further. They're talking about this being LoRa, long range radio, and Bluetooth BLE, Bluetooth Low Energy. The LoRa is using the 900 megahertz range, and it will help these devices help the frequencies to bridge the internet using nearby sidewalk gateways, such gadgets as including Echo Show 10, Echo Dart smart speakers, wired Ring spotlights, and floodlight cameras, as well as a small number of commercial grade bridges. We'll have a link in the show notes for all the devices that have this enabled, so you can find out if you unknowingly had this coming up and being part of this network. You can go through and opt out of Sidewalk, but it's a little bit buried. We'll also have the link for that in the show notes, as well as the Sidewalk Privacy and Security Claims PDF that's linked in the Verge article. So a lot to deep dive in here. Too much to do right now. I'll hand it back over to, when it comes to making sure that things are properly done, that you can opt out of different things. There are also things that you have to file on a yearly basis, right? So along with that, what's the next article?
IRS authorized efile.com tax return software caught serving JavaScript malware. efile.com, an IRS authorized e-file software service provider used by many for filing their tax returns, has been caught serving JavaScript malware. Security researchers state that the malicious JavaScript file existed on efile.com website for weeks. Bleeping Computer has been able to confirm the existence of the malicious script file in question at this time. Note the security incident specifically concerns efile.com and not the IRS e-file infrastructure or identical sounding domains. efile.com was caught serving malware as spotted by multiple users and researchers. The malicious script in question is called popper.js. Development comes after a crucial time when U.S. taxpayers are wrapping up their IRS tax returns before the April 18th due date. The highlighted code above is base64 encoded, with its decoded version shown below, and attempts to load JavaScript returned by Can't even really figure out what that's supposed to say.
Info aim main one ligane dot online.
So, the general random throw a bunch of words together domain. The use of math.random at the end is likely to prevent caching and load a fresh copy of the malware. Should the threat actor made any changes to it every time efile.com is visited. At the time of writing, the endpoint was no longer up. Bleeping Computer confirmed the malicious JavaScript file popper.js was being loaded by almost every page of efile.com, at least up till April 1st. Seems an odd timing. As of today, the file is no longer seen serving the malicious code. On March 17th, Reddit thread surfaced where multiple efile.com users suspected the website was hijacked. At the time, the website showed an SSL error message that some suspected was fake and indicative of attack. Turns out that's indeed the case. Researchers spotted an additional file, update.js, associated with the attack, which was being served by Amazon AWS endpoint. Bleeping Computer also obtained the so-called update.js and noticed the fake SSL error message present in base64 encoded HTML code. An excerpt of the decoded string generated the fake SSL error shown below. The malicious file update.js further attempts to promote users to download the next stage payload, depending on whether they are using Chrome, update.exe, and they include links to VirusTotal, or Firefox, where it is installer.exe. Antivirus products have already started flagging these executables as Trojans. Bleeping Computer also independently confirmed these binaries established connection to a Tokyo-based IP address that appears to be hosted with Alibaba. The same IP also hosts the illicit domain associated with the incident. Malware Hunter team further analyzed these binaries and stated that these contain Windows botnets written in PHP, a fact that research group mocked. Additionally, the group called out efile.com for leaving the malicious code on its website for weeks. So the website got compromised at least around the middle of March and still not cleaned, writes Malware Hunter team. Referred to the Reddit thread, the group further stated even the payload serving domain was mentioned 15 days ago already. How's this not gotten any more attention yet? So it's got more details on exactly what the code does. So if you're interested, check it out. And for those that need to file their taxes in America, make sure you go into a reputable site. And you probably can't disable JavaScript, but you could at least try and only load the ones that you think you need.
Right? No kidding. What if I want to use another piece of software to file my taxes?
Well, there's some more software that came out this year because every year there's more software to help you do your taxes easier. This time it was released on Steam and promptly banned, but it is still available on itch.io and their own servers, called Tax Haven 3000, and its creator says it's probably safer than most big box tax software. So in this game, you meet Iris, a tax accountant that's really excited to help you complete your taxes while potentially dating her as well. So it's set up as a dating sim, but the idea is that you can give it your actual tax information. It will prepare the documents that you can then print out or then send to whatever filing service that you use electronically to be able to actually submit your tax forms. Last I'd heard, it's not released yet. It might be out now, but I've never heard of anyone actually checking to see if it does internet connections to submit it for you. But I think most of it is you can either print or download the files. It doesn't actually transmit them for you.
Okay. That's what it looks like on the Inverse site.
Mm-hmm. So whenever I was looking up at the developer, their previous game was Chair Simulator. It is apparently a group known for doing a lot of parody and kind of artistic expressions of various things. So this is them calling out the tax industry and some of the issues with it. So we've also included a link to the website where you can check it out. Unfortunately, the collector's edition is sold out, so you'll be unable to get the body pillow for Iris.
Aww.
And if Gator scroll, all the way at the bottom, it does show a second character, this one named Turbo. And my favorite part is the description of an unsavory sass bro, quick to anger and oddly fixated on Iris. He seems to be up to no good. Likes corporate lobbying, confusing forms, dark UX, and fleece vests.
Love it. Shots fired. uh, Fun. All right. Yeah, we need more of this in our lives just to make things happy and light. This is hilarious.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, like the copyrights, and then at the top right, they've got MSCHF as the company name, which of course could be seen as mischief.
Love it. Mischief tax.
Mm-hmm.
You know what? If it works, that's the part that's hilarious, though.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it does say it covers the 1040 U.S. individual income tax return. Because if you're doing a visual novel and trying to date a virtual tax accountant, probably single.
So does it do? Let's see. So that's for the federal side. It doesn't do the state though. So
No.
if somebody does this, please let us know. I want to hear about how the process went. Oh, love it. Underneath the features, checking eligibility of the earned income tax credits, American Opportunity Credit, and more. Second point, suitable for singles without dependents. And third, features multiple endings. It checks all the boxes.
Hopefully.
I see what you did there. Well done, sir. All right, let's talk about checking those boxes. And, Microsoft has added Bing AI chat to its Swift keyboard for Android. This was reported I grabbed an article from Slashdot that led to another location, but long story short on this, Android users who want to tap to use some AI as they type their phone can now use that help from Microsoft. Released this week, the latest flavor of the Microsoft Swift Key beta keyboard integrates Bing AI bot to bring in some smarts to your typing. Confirming the beta release of the tweet posted on Wednesday, Microsoft Chief Technology Officer for the Mobile and Commerce Division said, "Did we just add AI functionality to SwiftKey?" And then answered, "Slowly rolling out. Get yourself into the beta channel to taste the future." By selecting the new SwiftKey beta as the keyboard on your Android device, you can then search for information via Bing, ask the AI to rewrite certain text, and chat with it to generate specific content. If you already have the current regular release of SwiftKey, you can keep that one, install the beta, and then just switch back and forth. So if you need to be able to, that interesting that they're including it in the keyboard. All right, I think we're ready to go into our next category. Digital, take it away.
Mm-hmm. Make sure I've got the right one because I got mixed up.
Gotcha. So it's This Week in Security.
Yeah. So, how hackers took over Linus Tech Tips. This was just a small story where
we skipped one.
Linus Tech
CIA director?
Yeah.
And then the miscellaneous, right?
Yep, I skipped over it.
Okay, all good. Just want to make sure. All good. Take it away.
CISA director says cutting agency's budget would return it to pre-SolarWinds world. Director Jen Easterly said that if the agency's proposed budget for fiscal year 2024 dropped to pre-2022 totals, it would put the nation at risk. Pointing to a growing cybersecurity threat from China and the need to better safeguard U.S. critical infrastructure, Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Security Agency Director Jen Easterly defended the administration's request to increase her agency's funding by around 5% over last year to $3.1 billion. The agency plans on prioritizing its work with state and local partners and smaller critical infrastructure operators that need more federal support to shore up cybersecurity defenses, Easterly told House Appropriations members during a Tuesday morning hearing. Any reduction in funding, she said, would severely negatively impact the work the agency has been doing with those stakeholders. Furthermore, she said if the agency's budget falls below 2022 totals around 2.6 billion, or if the agency has to cut back on its regional partnerships, it would put us back in a pre-SolarWinds world where we'll lose the visibility that we've developed that's harmful to our security as a nation. A significant portion of the funding for CISA in President Biden's fiscal 2024 budget, or about $100 million, would go towards implementing the Cyber Incident Reporting for Critical Infrastructure Act, which requires certain critical infrastructure operators to report cyber attacks to the agency within 72 hours and ransomware payments within 24 hours. A rulemaking a notice for the act is expected next March and full implementation of the law in September 2025. Hiring is also a major priority for the agency. Easterly said that CISA is on track to hire more than 600 people by the end of the year. The director also had a series of sober warnings on some of the emerging and current threats facing the nation. She called out machine learning, social apps such as TikTok, and a Chinese invasion of Taiwan as growing concerns the agency is monitoring. She warned that China is paying close attention to U.S. involvement in Ukraine and could consider a retaliatory cyber attack against American critical infrastructure if the U.S. were to get involved in any future Taiwan conflict. The U.S. could potentially see Chinese cyber attacks against pipelines, she said, because the big lesson of cloning a pipeline is, what a great way to create panic, incite social panic to essentially upend how Americans are thinking about their safety and security, Easterly said. Easterly also added that the chorus of national cybersecurity officials warning about TikTok and China's ability to potentially influence the American public. But while supporters a complete ban of the app in the U.S., Easterly noted it would be difficult to implement. Beyond TikTok, she said, there is also all sorts of Chinese technology that's in our critical infrastructure supply chain. We need to be very concerned about that.
Okay, I'm gonna come out and say it, man. It sounds like she's got a good head on her shoulders and she knows what she's talking about, because just doing the ban's not gonna fix it. Unless we go and start creating this stuff back on our ground and actually creating those foundries to where, I don't know, something about being self-sufficient or being able to use utilities that are in your local area. I this tracks for me. What about you?
Speaking of, as a side note, I found out my old high school is actually getting a PCB etcher,
Really?
and I'm super jealous of those kids now.
I bet. No kidding. No kidding.
So,
Well,
yeah. CISA seems to be doing a lot of productive things to help encourage cybersecurity, trying to help our infrastructure as far as power lines, water treatment, everything, to be aware of what's going on, holding them responsible for what's happened, as well as trying to increase the protections to prevent it in the future.
could not agree more. And honestly, at this point, it seems like Jen's the one who's been kicking butt and taking names for that. So that's awesome. All right, now we can get into our miscellaneous stories. So talk to me about LTT. Has he hacked my screwdriver yet? What's going on?
Well, they're currently hacking it into a smaller version, but I'm not doing ads for LTT Store. So this was a rather big article that came out because it was very public. Linus Tech Tips got hit with the crypto scam that a scammer takes over the YouTube account and starts showing a live stream that included Elon Musk from quite a few years ago at this point, talking about cryptocurrency and encouraging users to send in crypto payments, and then they would return the same payment doubled, which of course doesn't happen. So this is actually a fairly common scam as far as what the effects are, and it's been around for a while, but they've never really been as quite as big as Linus Tech Tips. There have been a few others. And it's not necessarily the fact that the attack happened, which in this case, it was sent as a PDF that was actually an exe to one of the business teams impersonating a sponsor in order to get the person to run it to steal their session token, which included permissions to upload, live stream, and delete videos through their YouTube account. Since it was a session token, Linus was unable to remove access through the normal means of resetting passwords. And he calls Google out on some of these as well. He mentioned some of the things that he could have done better, where due to his mental conditions of ADD or ADHD, he was unable to really concentrate, especially having some of his other chief officers talking to him at the same time at 3 a.m. while he's naked in his house, which also got included in the video, where apparently one of their editors has figured out to blur the whole screen and then remove the blur versus just blurring out and having to see things.
Yeah, good call.
He later goes on to detail some of the things that Google could have done better. They're actually really good things that a lot of cybersecurity people should take a look at and start thinking about implementing. Things like, if you're about to delete 1,000 videos off your YouTube channel or a large amount of data off of any of your services, maybe you should have them do another two-factor authentication to say, hey, you're really who you think you are. In this case, after Linus started trying to disable access, the attacker was able to delete tons of their videos without any type of re-authentication, which seems like it would be pretty useful to prevent attacks like this. They also seem to obfuscate some of the ways of being able to clear out those session tokens, where while they reset the accounts, apparently they have like thousands of accounts and passwords that they have to go through. So they did mention one of their things was needing to clean up some of their permissions, that not everyone had as broad permissions, as well as having everything sorted out. One of the problems is they were using LastPass and were in a migration to a different service, which threw a whole wrench into it because Linus didn't have access to some of the new passwords.
Ruh-roh. Yeah, and
So
go ahead.
it's a really good video, and there's a lot of recommendations that, while he's specifically referring to Google and YouTube, that things that they should implement, they're good ideas for anyone, for things like, hey, if you've got a person that's about to do a password reset for one of your users as a service desk or security person, maybe that's a chance where you need to have them do that two-factor authentication to make sure they're the ones doing it and not using stolen credentials.
Absolutely. And to follow up with one of the other things that he had gone through and said was that having a tabletop exercise to make sure if this was to happen, whose role is it to do X, Y, and Z? Where is that information located and kept? Because we may all have that 3 o'clock call, and are you going to have that playbook already written that you've practiced, or are you trying to scramble and grab that information and trying to reason, which, let's be honest, anybody at 3 o'clock in the morning, probably not at their sharpest and best, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that's one of the things that I took away from it, is that having those tabletop exercises for our own deals, our personal accounts, our personal YouTube, let alone if you're going through and doing this for your organization, get a tabletop schedule. Let's get it going.
And if you need help, there's always backdoors and breaches, which you can find at Black Hills Information Society.
Woo woo! Absolutely.
Not
Love
sponsored.
it. Not sponsored. Wish, right? No. It's yeah, and the fun part about that is, depending on your industry, you can get additional decks to be able to help with that. Or if you've got Steam, you've got Tabletop Simulator, you can use it on there. They've also got free versions online as well. So I think you can even print off your own set for free. They want to help folks. So we've linked it in the past. We'll link it again in the show notes for being able to get yourself a deck of those. So fantastic there. And let's see. You posted this last one as well for Afro Man?
Mm-hmm. Afro Man sued by law enforcement officers who raided his home. Afro Man has promised to countersue for the undeniable damage this has had on my client's family, career, and property. 7 members of the Adams County Sheriff Office who raided Joseph Foreman's house last year are now suing him, claiming, among other things, that he invaded their privacy. 4 deputies, 2 sergeants, and a detective are claiming Foreman, aka Afro Man, took footage of their faces obtained during the raid and used it in a music video and social media post without their consent, a misdemeanor violation under Ohio Revised Code. They're also suing on civil grounds, saying Foreman's use of their faces, i.e., personas, in the videos and social media posts resulted in their emotional distress, embarrassment, ridicule, loss of reputation, and humiliation. The plaintiffs say they're entitled to all of Foreman's profits from their use of their personas. That includes, according to the complaint, proceeds from the songs, music videos, and live event tickets, as well as the promotion of Foreman's Afroman brand, under which he sells beer, marijuana, t shirts, and other merchandise. They're also asking for an injunction to take down all videos and posts containing their personas. Cincinnati attorney Robert Klinger filed the suit in Adams County Common Pleas Court on March 13th against Foreman, his recording firm, and a Texas-based media distribution company. Not every law enforcement officer involved in the raid is named as a plaintiff. Foreman on Wednesday posted on Instagram promoting to countersue for the undeniable damage this had to my client's family, career, and property. The sheriff's office also conducted the armed raid of Foreman's Adams County home last August, where you can see the body cam footage. And the video is also on YouTube of the song, which is quite hilarious. So what it was is he had security cameras in his house. The officers conducted a raid for various charges, and then Efferman decided to add that to a video because they did not find anything of pertaining to those charges. There were also questions on why are they disconnecting my camera? Because there is footage of them trying to disconnect the cameras.
That's the thing that seems sketch to me. So I don't know Afroman as an artist. This came up in one of my other feeds. I'm like, this seems weird. What's going on here? And the phrase that jumped out to me was that they come up here with AR-15s, traumatize my kids, destroy my property, kick in my door, rip up and destroy my camera system. That should be sending all sorts of flags by going, something's wrong here. And then on top of it, they didn't find anything.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
No. And yet this is a technically minor raid in the U.S. system. Like the fact that it was only a door broken down and cameras disconnected isn't terrible considering some of the other things that have happened in the past.
That's completely true. You're absolutely right.
So the current law is you have reasonable expectation of privacy in your own home. Does that apply to your guests?
Oh, so, okay. If we're going to go down this route, just like what we've talked about in the past, where if a guest was coming in and they see an Alexa, are you okay with being recorded or your conversations potentially being recorded and sent off to somebody because you're around an Alexa?
And then now it branches to, they aren't your guests. But by law, they're allowed to be there. So do they still get the right to privacy or not?
Oh, man. That gets... This is going to set precedences in some weird ways.
Mm-hmm.
Because they're also public servants. And they were doing their job. But they were doing their job, which is to defend the public. This is going to be really touchy, dude.
But you're not in the public anymore. You're in a private residence.
But if they're wearing body cams too, and those are supposed to be able to be seen by the public, whether it's a private recording or their personal recording, this could go really weird directions.
Because the body cam doesn't necessarily get the officer's face, but given that there's multiple cameras and police officers in the same area, they're capturing each other. So
right. This is going to be interesting. I'm glad you came across this one too, because I'm like, I saw this about a week and a half ago. I'm like, this is weird to come across this feed. Okay, we'll take a look. But, all right. Anything else that you wanted to add to that one?
Nope. Just go check out the video because it's pretty good.
Okay, we'll check it out. All right, so let's talk about some cool twos that we found this week.
So the new one is, hey, we were just talking about CISA. They've released a tool to detect hacking activity in Microsoft Cloud services. So CISA has released a new open source incident response tool that helps detect signs of malicious activity in Microsoft Cloud environments. It was developed in collaboration with Sandia, a U.S. Department of Energy National Laboratory. This Python based utility can dump telemetry information from Azure Active Directory, Microsoft Azure, Microsoft 365 environments. The tool is called Untitled Goose Tool.
I was about to say, you
It
buried the
is
lead there. That's hilarious.
It is a robust and flexible hunt and incident response tool that adds novel authentication and data gathering methods in order to run a full investigation against a customer's Azure Active Directory, Azure AD, Azure, and Microsoft 365 environments, CISA says. Untitled Goose Tool gathers additional telemetry from Microsoft Defender for Endpoint and Defender for Internet of Things. With the help of CISA's cross-platform Microsoft Cloud interrogation and analysis tool, security experts and network admins can export and review AAD sign-ins and audit logs, Microsoft 365 Unified Audit Logs, Azure Activity Logs, Microsoft Defender for IoT alerts, Microsoft Defender for endpoint data for suspicious activity. Query, export, and investigate AAD, M365, and Azure configurations. Extract cloud artifacts from Microsoft's AAD, Azure, and M365 environments without performing additional analytics. Perform time bound of the UAL, extract data within the time bounds, and collect and review data using similar time bounding capabilities for MDE data. So we've also included the GitHub, which includes everything about it as well.
This sounds
so
like
Untitled.
Go ahead.
On the GitHub page, they have Untitled Goose Tool. The goose is loose.
Nice. It sounds like an IR's dream, especially if you're in the Microsoft realm.
Mm-hmm.
Very cool.
Yeah, I had to include that one just because of the name.
Absolutely. Oh, I need to flip over to. There we go. That's hilarious. Goose is loose. Cool. Always great to be able to get more SEM products and different things that you can help boost your logging, right? Log games are everything nowadays. All right. Let's see. Last couple things that we have for this evening to wrap it up. Humble Bundle has a couple new guides. If you haven't picked up, there is a Pocket Guides book bundle, and for the full price of the $25, you can get 16 items, including Quiskit Pocket Guide, C# 10 Pocket Reference, PyTorch, PowerShell Q#, Data Pipelines, C Pocket Reference, Regular Expression version 2, the Linux Pocket Guide 3rd edition, Machine Learning, SQL Pocket Guide, Bash Pocket Reference 2nd edition, Git, Vi and Vim editors 3rd or 2nd edition, grep, and Sadin Awk 2nd edition. And the second bundle that you could pick up was the Linux Mega Bundle for 25 items for $25. Is Mastering Linux Administration, Hands-on Enterprise Automation on Linux, Mastering Linux Security and Hardening, The Ultimate Kali Book, 2nd edition, Windows and Linux Penetration Testing from Scratch, Linux System Programming Techniques, Linux Service Management Made Easy with Systemd, Linux Command Line and Shell Scripting Techniques, Hands-on Linux Administration on Azure, Migrating Linux to Microsoft Azure, Red Hat Enterprise Linux 8 Administration, Mastering Linux Hardening and Mastering Linux Security and Hardening, Linux Device Driver Development, Linux Kernel Programming Part 2, Char Device Drivers and Kernel Synchronization, Linux for Networking Professionals, Linux Kernel Debugging, Linux Administration Best Practices, Linux Kernel Programming, Linux Device Driver Development, Embedded Linux Programming, Mastering Kali Linux for Advanced Penetration Testers, Red Hat Enterprise 9 Administration, Digital Forensics with Kali Linux, Windows Subsystem for Linux, WSL2, Tips, Tricks, and Techniques, and, finally, SE Linux System Administration 3rd Edition. I'll say, I've got about a quarter of these digital. These other ones, I'm going to be spending a little bit of money because that's got a lot of decent content for the $25 or $18.
Mm-hmm.
Fantastic. All right. Anything else that you want to talk about for the end of this week?
So I think you have one more in upcoming events.
Yes. Okay. So call out to our friend Karma, who has always been going through year over year and doing that badge life list. He's already got it up and running for this year's DEF CON. So for DEF CON 31 or for year 2023, there is the badge list that you can go pick up. We've got links in the show notes. You can follow him at capital K4RM4NESS on Twitter. And I'm not sure if he's over on the DEF CON Mastodon side of the house, but I would imagine at the same handle there as well. So with that as a teaser, I can say Digital and I have been working on the Darknet badge for this year. We're getting a little bit excited. It's going to be fun. It's going to be something new and different than what we've ever done in the past.
Mm-hmm.
So if you are interested, come hang out with us on the Wednesday night workshops. There's always different projects that we're working on. Sometimes we may be doing teasers of what we're working on for the contest. Other times it'll be just a random project that is sucking all of our time up, like 3D printing or soldering or I don't know. What's your current project that you're working on?
Right now I'm transferring another 600 some gigabytes from my old NAS to my new NAS.
Nice. Okay.
Do we want to go through my entire table that's next to me as well?
How?
There's like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 7, 8, 9, 10 projects laid out that I'm trying to work through.
Yeah, so I thought, hey, my boxes are great. I've got 15 boxes over here. I'm not going to start a new one until I finish the open one. And then I look at this wall with a now mounted whiteboard. And I've got 4 different sections. I've got my employer, I've got Darknet, I've got Home Lab, and then Church IT. And there are more projects than there is time. Yeah, having fun. But you know what? There's never a boring minute. And I'm looking forward to how close we're getting to DEF CON. As of time of recording, looks like we're at 125 days, 10 hours, 58 minutes, and 50 seconds. With that, go follow us on our Twitters. Oop, go ahead. What were you going to say?
Last thing was, as far as Darknet's concerned, we've opened it up in the past, and I'm sure we'll do it again this year. If you are interested in creating content, feel free to reach out. We'll always accept new quest ideas because we don't know everything. You probably have something you can teach us as well as everyone else.
Could not agree more. Whether you want to be able to share something that you already know, or this is a great excuse for you to dive into something that you want to learn it, and then say, how can I make this a teaching quest and or a challenge quest for folks to learn more about it at DEF CON. Trying to be able to lower that ability for folks to be able to jump in, make it easy for folks to get started in anything InfoSec and anything IT related. Come one, come all. Let's bring it on and make the entire community better. With that, you can go find me on Twitter and on defcon.social at GATER_BYTE.
And I'm at digital_tinker, TINKER.
And with that, if all goes well, we should see you, same bat time, same bat station, next week.
See you then.
Bye.